Πολύ και η αναφορά που έγινε στην εβραϊκή κοινότητα κάνει μια πολύ καλή πάσα. Θα ακούσουμε τον Τζον Σιτιλίδη τι θα πει, αλλά θα ήθελα να τον ακούσουμε να μας μιλάει και για τη συνεργασία του ελληνικού, ας το πούμε, λόμπι με την εβραϊκή κοινότητα, διότι από την προσωπική μου εμπειρία γνωρίζω ότι έχει επαφές και παίζει ένα ρόλο σε αυτή τη συνεργασία. Τζον.
Για δεύτερη φορά εδώ σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Με έχουν ζητήσει μερικοί εδώ να δώσω την ομιλία μου στα ελληνικά. Δυστυχώς τα ελληνικά μου τα σπαστά τα καταφέρνουν για λόγους τουρισμού, αλλά όχι για λόγους ανάλυση για πολιτική επικοινωνία. So I will offer my remarks in English and hopefully will try and touch on some of the points that my beloved friend and good moderator Tom Ellis is asking me to speak about. But there are a couple of other issues I'd like to bring to the discussion here, and then we can handle the other points in Q&A. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what constitutes the Greek American community as it regards Greek foreign policy. Statistically, the largest body of individuals that might have an interest in Greece are the Greek Orthodox faithful of the United States. An Orthodox census in 2010 showed that there were about 500,000 Greek Orthodox Americans in the United States, members of the churches. Well, not everyone is a member of the churches, so let's for our sake double or triple that and say maybe there's 1 million to 1.5 million Greek Americans in the United States. That's the entire community. They're not all involved in foreign policy. There are probably several thousand Greek Americans who are very politically active in Democratic and Republican party politics. Not all of them are involved in Greek foreign policy. There are probably hundreds of Greek Americans in the United States who contact lawmakers, write editorials to newspapers, express themselves on matters of interest to Greek foreign policy. And there are probably 10 to 20 people who work on these issues full-time in Washington. So that's the Greek American lobby in terms of numbers, statistics, and actual manpower. All of this is financed by Greek Americans. None of it, to the best of our knowledge, except for occasional issues, is financed by either the Greek government or by the Greek business community, which happens to be largely absent from any type of Greek American political communications in Washington. Now, nobody expects the Greek government in this current capacity to be financing any type of a political communication strategy. My guess is the Troika would make sure that that wouldn't be permitted. But the Greek business community, which consists of a large number of multi-millionaire and perhaps billionaire families, can certainly establish a 501c3 organization, an educational organization in the United States, and use that as a tool to educate lawmakers, media, influencers in the United States of all stripes, and look to work with the Greek government, not any particular party or any particular government, but on a consistent bipartisan or in Greece multi-partisan level, to forge some type of a long-term Greek foreign policy strategy. And one of the problems that Greek Americans have is that the ones who do care and want to help really don't know what Greece is seeking to achieve in Washington on any given day. So there were the bedrock issues. Obviously, the Greek American community came together over the Cyprus issue in 1974. And as Dr. Papasotiriou mentioned, Archbishop Iakovos was a key figure in consolidating Greek American political activity at that time. The Cyprus issue is more than 4 decades old now. And much of that initial enthusiasm and activism to try to bring about a just solution to Cyprus has dissipated. We have the so-called Aegean disputes, which really came to the foreground with the EMEA crisis in 1996. But the Greek government has not paid for any professional lobbying or political communications to advance its positions in the Aegean, although about 7 or 8 years ago, there was actually a professional lobbying firm that was hired on the visa waiver issue, which is a technical and legal issue. The Aegean issues involve Greek sovereignty. These are the issues that countries go to war over, as Greece was almost prepared to do in 1996, and yet there is no record of any Greek government, ND, Nea Dimokratia, PASOK, or now Syriza, doing anything in Washington to advance its sovereign interests in the Aegean Sea. It's all up to Greek Americans. The problem is that Greek Americans who love Greece and want to be helpful to Greece have full-time careers. They have families. They don't work full-time in Washington, D.C. to support the political communications of Greece. And even if there were sort of more robust efforts in Washington, what would they be articulating to lawmakers in Washington? Would it be just the Aegean issues? Maybe some of those issues have somewhat moderated in recent years. Is it the so-called Macedonia issue? I don't know. There's an organization in the United States and Canada that says that they will never recognize a name compromise that has a name Macedonia. So they're opposed to the position of the Greek government. So who's coordinating messaging and strategy between Athens and Washington on these issues? In Athens, is there an interagency process where your foreign ministry, your defense ministry, your economic and finance ministries, your tourism ministries are coordinating on a regular basis what are Greece's strategic interests in our relationship with Washington, and then coordinating that work with business executives and people with very important relationships in media in the United States, with senators and congressmen, so that there's a coordinated, disciplined messaging process, so that no matter who takes over in government here, and it looks like we have a lot of elections lately, and we may have a lot of elections in the very near future, there's a consistency so that Greek Americans can do the best job they possibly can to assist Greece in achieving objectives. But that, ladies and gentlemen, has to begin here. It's not for Greek Americans to decide what Greece's foreign policy objectives should be. It's not for them to have to pay for this out of their own pockets. The Greek business community needs to step up to the plate, and I presume that Greek business leaders have a profound interest in the so-called ethnika themata. Great. Where are they? And how are they assisting Greek governments and Greek political leaders to come together for the good of the Greek nation state? It's somewhat disheartening sometimes for those of us in the United States who want to be as helpful. We don't get involved in domestic politics in Greece. So whichever party is in power, if there's a way to help strengthen the U.S.-Greece relationship, we want to be there to be helpful in that process. But when we see more divisiveness here and less concern for where Greece's stand is in Cyprus and the Aegean issues and the like, it becomes very problematic for us to be able to coordinate effectively in Washington, D.C. So Greece's internal political situation makes it more difficult for Greek Americans to effectively communicate positions that advance your national interests. I'm going to close with some of the difficulties that we have now in the lack of coordination, because Greek foreign policy is necessarily involved in some very new areas that don't necessarily comport with Greek American activities. Tom mentioned before the very important relationship now between Greece and Israel on a strategic level, defense cooperation, energy cooperation, hopefully tourism, trade, technology cooperation. And that's all very good and very important. And I think that the pro-Israel community in the United States has already made very clear and very public its strong interest and desire in a stronger relationship with Greece and with Cyprus. And we think we'll see some of this actually implemented and coordinated in a very helpful manner in the months and years to come. But what will happen in Athens if there's a renewed war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza? Or if there's a war between Israel and Hezbollah? And will that affect the cohesiveness of the Greece-Israeli relationship in a way that will assist or set back Greek-American, Jewish-American activities in Washington, D.C.? We'll see. The Armenian issue is a very important one in Washington, D.C., and the Armenian American community is one of the most effective communities in communicating its very critical objectives, which are basically twofold. One is to get the Turkish government to recognize the Armenian genocide, and the other one is to get the United States government to support Armenia on the Nagorno-Karabakh dispute. But Greece now has a very strong interest in strengthening its relationship with Azerbaijan to promote the Trans-Adriatic pipeline. So does the Greek government want the Greek American community to help promote Azerbaijani ties at the expense of ties with the Armenian community or not? Or can the two be done simultaneously? I don't know. There's been no coordination between Athens and the Greek American community. On Egypt, which is going to become a very important ally of Greece, I believe, both in terms of trade. The Chinese need the open Suez Canal to be able to bring their ships to Piraeus for the COSCO operations here. But Egypt's human rights record is far worse than Turkey's. And there's a large Coptic Orthodox community in Egypt that faces physical violence of the worst kind, far worse than anything the Greek Orthodox community faces in Turkey. So does the Greek government want us to help promote those relations with Egypt, even while we're trying to, quote unquote, bring people's attention to Turkish human rights abuses against the patriarchate of the Greek Orthodox community? And I'll close on one other issue that may provide for some type of a tension between Athens and the Greek American community. Athens, of course, has a very pronounced interest, as I just mentioned, in improving relations with China. But look at what China is doing in the South China Sea, where it's inventing new territories, creating new territories, and asserting its territorial rights at the expense of a number of very important allies of the U.S. and the West in the South China Sea. Well, Greece needs help to deal with Turkey's territorial ambitions in Greece. But how does Greece support, say, the West in bringing attention to China's sovereign violations in the South China Sea, while it's seeking to push back what it calls Turkey's sovereign violations in the Aegean and Mediterranean Sea? Without coordination, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be far more difficult for the Greek American community to bring credibility and principle to the positions they're trying to promote in Washington on behalf of Greece if there isn't some type of ongoing, consistent process of communication between the communities, and it has to start in Athens with a sustained interagency cooperation and a clear definition of what Greece's strategic interests are, and then go to the Greek American community and say, can you help us achieve our goals? So I'll leave it on that, and we'll take the Q&A. Thank you.